Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, I'd like to call the June 2nd meeting of the Board of Architectural Review to order. We have two items on the agenda this evening. The first, the Krantz and Stetsenko, 18 Patterson Brook Road, modifications to windows and doors. We received your documentation, but perhaps you would like to share the screen with us and show us your vision.
I will do that. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Could you enable me?
Yep, just 1 second.
Thanks.
I appreciated you showed the before and afters. That makes it much easier on Zoom.
Good. Just say when, John.
You should be fine now.
Thanks. I think that is good. One moment. I'm just trying to get to full screen view. Oop. All right. Can everybody see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So my name is Mary Burr. I am the architect for Andy and Andre for 18 Patterson Brook Road. And I'd love to just give some brief history of the site before we launch into what we're proposing here. So Andy and Andre bought the house in 2020, and they rented at the park for a couple of summers before that. It is a 3.2 acre lot, one family A4 zone. It was designed in 1899 by James Brown Lord. And there was a main house, which accompanied the carriage house, which is now Andy and Andre's main house. But for this purpose, we'll call it the carriage house. The main house burned down in 1965, but the carriage house remained. The carriage house is also attributed to James Brown Lord. This was the main house, which burned down in 1965. The Wagstaffs lived there for 42 years. Here is the carriage house. So this is the before picture. This is the best original photo that we can dig up, circa 1977. You'll see in subsequent, more recent photos that it has since been added on. They've added an entry here, not Andy and Andre, a previous owner has added an entry here and expanded the second floor with a wing here, and new porches. So here it is today. You drive up the driveway here. You see that expanded second floor, which is not original. Same thing on the other side. This is the new entry, which was also added later. This is the new second floor wing, not original. Symmetrical second floor wing, not original. These doors were not original. Here is a view from the northwest corner. Again, this was not original. We don't have a great photo, but I imagine these overhead garage doors were not original. So it's one of the things we propose to restore. Here is the west. And here is the rear, the garden elevation. Again, I highly doubt that these doors were original, and we know that these porches were added later. The previous owner was a car collector, which you can see here. This is a new building built in 2005 by, I can tell you the architects, Roche, I believe. It's not historic. Yeah, 2005. We have a close-up here of the doors. These doors appear on the main house as well as the garage auxiliary building, and we're going to propose replacing them with swinging carriage style doors rather than overhead garage doors. I wanted to show you what it looks like right now. We did a number of precedent searches for other buildings in the park, other carriage houses. I won't go into detail in the interest of your time in all of these, but we did survey other buildings by James Brown Lord. This one actually Andy and Andre rented a couple of summers ago. This next one is by James Brown Lord. There's some similarities in this building, like this door you'll see Andy and Andre have nearly the same one inside their house. So let's get to the meat of it. Oh, this is a precedent image we just wanted to show because the new replacement doors we are suggesting should look more like this than the overhead garage doors that are there now. We think this is more contextual. It would also let more light in. And since they're proposing to use the interior for living space rather than car storage space, we think this is better suited. Another precedent for the doors. All right, so now we'll get into the meat of what we're proposing. I'd love to get your feedback on. Currently, the driveway comes in like this. The site is not visible from the road. East Lake Road comes along here. We are proposing a spur off of here to the lower level of this garage. Right now, there's a gravel court here, and there is a single garage door, and it was used to store cars. We think it would be very nice to have a discrete parking area down here, and then to reclaim this massive driveway, which is all gravel right now, as an outdoor living space and treat it more like a courtyard between the carriage house and the auxiliary building built in 2005. We realize we need to have, engineering and grading and a landscape plan, but we wanted to put this for you in the early stages of schematic design to get your initial feedback. So we have plans existing and proposed. I realize this is more about the exterior. I'm including the plans in case you would like to reference them, because most of the exterior window changes are a result of the interior plan changes. So you'll see here, the existing house was largely used to park cars, and we are proposing that the living space be moved to the first floor, as in many houses, most houses, and the dining space down here. And as a result, there is going to be some reconfiguration on the interior. Here's the second floor. There's a kitchen here now, which you can see. We'd like to have bedrooms and offices upstairs. No changes to the third floor. Here are exterior elevations. On the top, we're showing the north existing and the west existing. On the bottom, we're showing the proposed, and we've bubbled the changes that we're proposing. So for the north existing, the only change we're proposing is these 3 current garage doors. We'd like to make more traditional carriage style doors, but to let more light in, and because we think they're more in keeping with the carriage house. We'll maintain all the finishes. It's cedar siding right now. It's copper, it has a slate roof, mahogany doors and windows. We're gonna match existing. On the west proposed elevation, I'll remind you, this second floor and this second floor are not original. These are the later additions. We would like to just drop the sills of these windows. Right now, they're these sort of square windows with very high sills. We'd like to match the other double hungs. We think it will look nicer, both from the inside and from the outside. And then down here where we have a kitchen, we're proposing to add a third window here, and they would be 3 double hungs. I'll pause, let you digest that. Okay. So now on the south elevation, which is the garden elevation, currently there are these 3 sets of doors with transoms. And in our opinion, the light cut is a little mission. It doesn't look quite right. It's clearly not original. And the head height is very low for 12'6" ceilings in here. And it's lower than the other windows. So we propose to raise the head height. So they're 8-foot doors with a 2-foot transom. It will look more in scale with the interior and with the exterior. So this is the proposed below. And on the east elevation, the top you see the existing, below you see the proposed. There's a screen porch here, not original. We would like to just shift the door out to that porch. And last, there are 4 windows, which are current double hungs, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'd like to drop the sills of those windows because this is now going to be living space and a dining room. And we'd like to let a bit more natural light in. So I should add all of these changes, none of these changes affect the footprint, the volume, the square footage. They're purely windows and doors as a result of interior partitions moving. There is an accessory building, which was built in 2005. Currently, it's a garage. It was used to house the car collection of the previous owner. We would like to maintain the garage on the lower level, as we showed in the site plan. But on the first floor and the second floor, we propose to make it guest space. Would not be rented in any way. It would purely be for Andy and Andre's guests' use. So as a result of this, we'd like to add a second garage door on the lower level so they can park 2 cars down there. And then on the upper level, we propose to match the doors that we are hoping to use on the main house. So they would be these carriage style doors with glass rather than overhead garage doors. And then the last change is to add just a man door here where there's currently a window. And that way they can access that courtyard, which we'd like to landscape rather than maintaining it as a driveway. So last, we have some cut sheets. The windows in this auxiliary structure, but also the windows in the main house, they're Marvin mahoganies. They have 7/8 muntins, and we would like to match existing. This is the proposed door that we already looked at for the carriage doors. This would have to be custom, so we don't have a cut sheet, but that's the drawing. And that is everything. Andy and Andre, do you want to add anything? Don't mean to put you on the spot. You don't have to.
No, I think you took everybody through it wonderfully. I think the main point of most houses have living space on the ground floor was our primary objective here and what we're looking to accomplish. So it's also just wonderful. I know we joined just a moment late, so it's really great to meet everyone on the board. And for clarification purposes, I'm Andy and this is Andre.
Welcome. Okay, I think you can stop sharing so we can see everyone.
Okay.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. And I will defer to my members of the board to raise any comments or questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. It's a beautiful presentation. And from where I sit anyway, every single one of your choices is, and this goes out to you guys as well, very thoughtful, well thought through. The doors that you're having customized are exquisite, and I know they won't come cheaply, but I think they will really, really improve the house. The only it's half a question and possibly a constructive comment, because I'm not sure I understand, Mary, exactly what you said. But so you showed us an example of the door, which of course was painted a very handsome dark green, but then you suggested that you were keeping the same rather odd and very light on precedent choice of stained cedar on stained cedar on stained cedar on stained cedar, very aggressive, very red, and frankly very odd. It's always been the thing that has bothered me about what is otherwise a really, really handsome building. And I was just wondering if you had anything to say about.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you pointed that out. And I can see Andy and Andre nodding their heads as well, because it is unusual. And I think that they must, so the clapboards are definitely stained cedar. I think that the windows and doors are probably stained mahogany, because it's tough to find a cedar window. But regardless, I agree. And I think Andy and Andre agree, but we felt we had to match the existing because we wanted to be faithful to the original and please your board. So be it.
My sense is that it may have been one owner ago, Andy and Andre, or maybe it was 2. I lost track, but I think that was a change that was probably made in the early 2000s, in the aughts is my guess.
It certainly did not always have this red sheen.
And it's certainly something we also find odd. So I think as
I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we've been searching back for more precedent imagery and prior imagery of the house, it's a little bit difficult to make out, but it does look like there was different. There may have been that sort of deeper green color that is actually referenced in that image may have been used more.
We definitely have evidence of green in the color footage, and then there's the black and white footage. At the very least, you can tell that, well, you can see the house in the black and white footage, which indicates that it's not this incredibly dark, light absorbing color that it is now.
Mhm.
So I think holistically, we would love to explore changing what the overarching color scheme looks like, because we're in accordance.
That would have been something we would have asked for. So we're delighted to hear you say that.
Well, I'm delighted to hear your reaction. And, I mean, that dark green, of course, is very classic for the period, and certainly for this, area, this village. I've also seen, if you go around Cambridge, Mass, or something where you see a lot of architecture of this kind, you'll also see some very dark aubergines and dark, kind of burgundies and things that, if one wanted to be a bit jazzier, or, there are lots of things you can do.
I'm actually going to be in Cambridge this weekend, so I will take a look. That is, I had not thought about it from that context, but now that I'm thinking about it, you're totally right.
You go all the way down, where's the Longfellow House?
Yep. I know
That road, and if you go up the hill,
Yes. Perfect.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that. I think it would be a great improvement if we could find some good precedents.
But I mean, then honestly, again, I'm one member of 5 here, but I just say, go do it. It looks amazing what you guys have planned, and very thoughtfully, conceived and hopefully executed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments from the board?
I think the changes are positive. I'm familiar with the structure. I wouldn't have called it a house quite yet, because really it was just a garage with an apartment over it. But definitely I think some positive changes in making it more a home than what it was before. My only question is any of it actually historic anymore? My understanding was it was raised and then replaced with the structure that's there now, but maybe someone can answer that.
So that is also, it's a bit difficult when we go back through the sequencing of the photos and the documents from the prior owner. What we think happened is that they began a renovation, and then it seems that they discovered some sort of structural issues towards the back half of it. So because he was a restoration person for cars, we have a lot of the original carriage doors and on the interior, and then there's some, fairly faithful replication of some elements.
The brick floor, for example, from what we understand, has been reconstructed brick by brick. But you're correct in that, strictly speaking, the timbers are new.
Yes. And the exterior structure and the framing, I think at one point they ended up needing to effectively take the existing structure down and go ground up.
Correct.
I can give you some background regarding that. I was there at the Board of Architecture review meetings, and also during the demolition and then the rebuild. The prior owner did receive permission to add some of the parts that were discussed earlier on the second floor, and the plans were approved. But when the project started, the contractors, when they were dismantling the interior walls, they felt that the structure was quite unstable. And unfortunately, what had happened over a long period of time is many of the sill plates that hold up the structure at the base were all rotten. And there's a lot of rot that was not expected. So at that point, the property owner came back to the BAR with a full set of construction drawings to pretty much rebuild what was there, along with the additions that he had previously received approval for. So everything that you see there was actually rebuilt in approximately 2005. And as beautiful as the garage floor looks, that is all essentially brand new and pretty magnificent, I must say. So the structure is new, even though it does look quite historic.
Mhm.
I know, in my view, what you've done sure adds the additional historic character regardless of when it was built or rebuilt. And I think it was nicely done. I did have a question on whether you were proposing any lighting changes,
Interior lighting?
exterior lighting.
Oh, exterior lighting. There are we'll be shifting the existing sconces because we are shifting the 3 garage doors on the north elevation to center on that mass. I believe that's the only exterior lighting change though. There are, Andy and Andre, I'm trying to remember if you liked the exterior sconces or if you would want to replace them with something different.
I think that would be the maximum we would ask for. We would not be proposing the installation of a light fixture where there's not one there or in the vicinity.
Well, if you decided to replace those, just please look at the guidelines with regard to lighting
Sure.
as you're making your decision, and come with I would suggest you come with a couple of suggestions. But I know that you're so careful about historic precedent and looking at what goes with the home that I'm sure what you pick will be beautiful. So,
Thank you so much.
so does anyone else have anything else to add? I know that neighbors were noticed, and John, there wasn't any comments to my knowledge, or one favorable one maybe?
Yes, there was one favorable one and no negative comments.
Right. And so with that, I would ask whether you want to come back to us and propose your lighting, any lighting changes and color scheme that maybe you want to change, and your landscaping plan. But I think you're hearing pretty favorable reviews of your structural changes to the exterior.
Glad to hear.
Wonderful. Thank
That's
you.
great.
Well, thank you for your efforts in that direction. Appreciate.
Of course.
Okay, we'll hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thanks everyone for your
Thank you.
time.
Okay, and now we have the opportunity to get a preview of a new application that has to first go before the planning board for a structure that's in very sharp contrast to the first one we just discussed. It's a very modern home, and the Pernas are suggesting it on Lookout Stable Road, the construction of a new home. We did notice the neighbors. We do have some comments from the neighbors, which we'll share after we get your vision of what you're proposing. And if you'd like to share the screen, that would be great.
I can do that for you, Jack and John. I'll start with the site plan if you like.
Evening, everybody. I
Good
hope
evening.
everybody's as excited as we are about this new house. We've been in the planning stage now for about a year. My senior architect is on the line with us, and he will be talking about the design. But let me just give you the basic concept of what we're trying to do. We're placing the house in an area where we're looking to do the least amount of environmental impact. This area is the flattest part of the lot, and it's far enough removed from the roads and from the neighbors to be fairly secluded. We're going to be trying our very best not to remove any trees that are not necessary to be able to place the building and other structures that are being proposed. I'd like to retain as much as a natural beauty as possible, and we're not planning on doing any tremendous changes in the landscaping. I'd like to keep it as natural as it is right now, just placing the house within the wooded area. The goal that we're trying to achieve with the construction of the house is to have a net zero emissions home. One that is not going to be using any fossil fuels whatsoever. We're going to be putting in geothermal system And we're
Wow.
going to be powering the geothermal system using solar panels. And we're going to be using radiant floor to increase the efficiency of the geothermal system. And we're going to be putting in a 6-ton unit that will do cooling and heating, all based on groundwater being pumped into the system from a depth of 200 feet from 6 separate wells. That's primarily how the heating is going to be achieved. And the electrical power will be backed up with 2 Tesla batteries. So we will not be able, if power goes out, we'll still be able to heat and cool the home without being connected to the grid. Of course, the house will be connected to the grid. Any extra power that's produced will be fed back into the system. We will be looking to put in a septic field, and we're in the process of getting hardship waiver for that. And that septic field, we're going to unfortunately have to remove 2 small trees and to be able to make sure the roots of those trees don't get into the septic field, and a few trees right where the building is going to be built. But beyond that, that's about the only changes in the land that we're looking to make. The driveway, as indicated, is a fairly long driveway because you've got quite a bit of an elevation to achieve, be able to come from the cul-de-sac on Lookout Stable Road to get to the home site. And that will be done with the least amount of excavation to the terrain. And we're expecting a net zero fill and cut. In other words, whatever cut is going to be required, we'll use the same material that's acquired at the site to make the fill. So that's primarily the construction of it. The house itself is going to be built on a concrete slab. The slab will have radiant floor built into it. There'll be no basement. I don't believe the geology in the area would allow a basement, but I'm not really keen on having a basement. Just a place to store a lot of clutter when you have a house with a basement. So I'm not going to have any basement. We'll have a small area for storage in the rear of the garage where the utilities will be. And there'll be a small laundry room in that part of the building too. Yes, the house is a modern design. It's based on a classic design that Chris Pardo, who's the lead for Roberto Oseguera, who you'll be hearing from soon. And what we did, we added the swimming pool area and enclosed that swimming pool area between the 2 wings of the house. And so we've got a single mass joining the 2 wings of the house, and the garage is adjacent to the kitchen area. And the 1 wing has a 2nd floor, and the other wing where the kitchen is a single floor structure. There'll be minimal amount of patio outside, paved patio, as you'll see in the renderings. And again, we're trying to achieve the least amount of impact on the land itself. Okay, I think we can go to the next plate or the next slide. Okay, you can skip this one, John, because this is an old one. So we're not going to be discussing this one.
That's the approach.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to introduce Roberto Oseguera, who's, I think, a brilliant architect, and he's been able to put this plan together for us. We've made a few changes in it over the last year. He's been very patient with us, but he's looking forward to hearing your comments after he makes his presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Roberto.
Hey everyone, my name is Roberto Oseguera. I'm located in Palm Springs, California. So I wanted to share my screen so I can quickly walk you through the plan if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
All right, can you see my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
Alrighty. So just a little bit of the side. The lot is 4.5 acres. The total condition space of the house, square footage of the house is 3,227 square feet. This includes the ground level includes 2 bedrooms, 1 main bath, 1 powder room, your kitchen living space, and your 3-car garage adjacent to the kitchen. As you can see, this area here, this is as Jack was describing, these are enclosed pool area that connects both of the wings of the house. Second floor consists of another 2 bedrooms, very similar layout, a master, no, a main bathroom and the powder room. The deck space would be, let's look at the renderings. All right, there. So that's your deck space. We kind of wanted to incorporate into the architecture. We wanted to incorporate the parapets. Therefore, you need any decorative guardrails, perhaps. So the purpose serve as your guardrails all around the deck space. The deck space would be composed of a pedestal system, a raised pedestal system with either Ipe wood tiles, 2x2 Ipe wood tiles, or concrete pavers. Let's look around. In terms of materials, we are proposing stucco at the light grade areas, the bedroom wings, and the living and kitchen wing. The main entry tower would be composed of a composite aluminum panel, and the garage would be a stucco essentially. It's would be similar to Venetian plaster. The Venetian plaster usually don't utilize for interior applications, but in the past we've been able to match that look with stucco, a smooth stucco, concrete-like, and that would be the look that it creates. What else? In terms of the design of the house, we are big on views and that indoor-outdoor experience. As you can see, there's a lot of glass in the house. The pool enclosure it has glass. The living wing, the entry tower as well, it's mainly composed of glass. So there's that quality that we want to get. Warm views, 2 natural lighting, a skylight right on top of the pool, so we can have again natural lighting in there. What else? There are a couple areas with accent wood. It would be cedar, natural cedar with just a cedar. I think that's about it in terms of the programming of the house, materials, and the intent we are getting at. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, before we start with the questions, John, you can take the screen. You can stop saving. I think I'd like to read the comments from the neighbors that were noticed, and then we can go on to discuss any questions or comments about the structure. The first, I would like to read into the record two letters I received. Now, has Mr. Perna seen these, John?
Yes, they were forwarded to Mr. Perna.
Okay, well, we have to put them into the record. Hi, John. I hope the town does not approve the Perna design as it is not consistent with the architecture and character of Tuxedo Park. When our home went through this process, we had to adhere to the architectural norm of Tuxedo Park. Our windows, doors, and siding had to blend in with the neighborhood. Even our chimney had to be made in such a way that reflected the building of the 1880s through the early 1900s. The position of our house had to be turned as well from the original design, as the front had to face the road. Our shed, when going through approval, even had to match the wood siding of the house to blend into the character of the town. In driving around our town as of now, all of our architecture is consistent with the character of Tuxedo Park. Building this house in the style that is proposed is contrary to everything that the Board of Architectural Review stands for. From our home, we will be looking at a concrete box, reminiscent of an urban school or warehouse or prison. We strongly urge you to not approve this design. We don't want to see our beautiful view of a forest ruined in this manner. We are not opposed to building a house. We are opposed to this design that doesn't belong in Tuxedo Park. If allowed, it will ruin property values and set a precedent that anything in any design can be built in Tuxedo Park, which negates the bar's purpose. Very truly yours, Joan and Stuart Wrightsfeld. That was letter number 1 for the record. Number 2, dear John, I tried accessing the plans for the Perna application, but could not under the agenda seal. The only one now that comes up is the agenda for July 28th. No other agendas seem to be on the website. I couldn't find another tab for the drawing, so I could not access them to review. I have several initial concerns about the siting of the home and the sewer line septic. Are they applying for a sewer permit or a hardship application in order to go on septic? If a sewer line goes in, our septic lines run across Lookout Stable Road. I have 2 septic lines. Naturally, I am concerned as to how the construction of a new sewer line will adversely affect these lines, not to mention the disruption of access for all of us on Lookout Stable Road. I am also concerned about the siting installation of water, power, and power lines to the home. As far as the siting goes, I am very concerned that they are too close to my property line and sight lines of my lot at home. As you know, I own lot 107, 107, my home, and 107, 108, a vacant lot, which is used as my outdoor eating sitting area. That is directly next to the Perna lot. I also want to know where they will be accessing their home. Will it be from access point on Lookout Mountain Road or on Lookout Stable Road? I have met the Pernas. They are lovely, and originally they expressed that they wanted to build a sustainable green home and mentioned Tesla roof tiles. Since I can't access plans, I don't know if their desires to build such a home is still planned. I'm in Italy now finishing up work, and I have to do here, and I won't be back for the planning board meeting on the 5/25. There's a 6-hour time difference. So, well, just talking about her schedule. Please convey my concerns to the planning board. This is probably more of a planning board letter, but since it does affect our boards, it came to us. And I request my comments be placed in the record of this meeting. Please confirm receipt of this correspondence. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much. Kind regards, Paola Tochi. So those are the 2 letters that we received. Do you want to comment on those, or do you want to hear from the board first and then address comments and concerns, Mr. Perna? Oh, you're muted.
I prefer to hear from the board first.
Fine.
Can I just jump in? I mean, the first of the neighbors, I think, has misconstrued some of what the Board of Architectural Review is about and how it goes about its business, and also what is and isn't precedent. I mean, for the record, in the early 1930s, William Lescaz built 2 visionary, early modern buildings, one on Turtle Point Road and one up on Crow's Nest. There is a ample precedent for visionary modern architecture happening here, and it is not something, as far as I am concerned, or as far as I understand, that the board, as a matter of course, just reflexively denies or shies away from. The as far as the other letter goes, I do think there's a little bit more merit to some of the skeptical questions. Oh, before I turn to that though, I want to say one thing, Mr. Perna. I think it is incredible, and it's the first time that we've seen an application. In my knowledge, I spent 12 and a half years on the planning board and now a couple of years now on this one, where someone is actually biting the bullet and doing the right thing, admittedly in a kind of a steeplechase of regulations and local zoning requirements. And I know that's tough, but I think the idea of a net zero house in this day and age is a wonderful thing, if not a necessary thing. It's a necessary thing that very few of us can do, especially if we live in the older houses here. But I think it's really commendable that you guys are tackling that, trying to do it with geothermal, et cetera, and the backup electrical, solar panels, et cetera. Now, if I could just turn back to the second of the neighbors' letters, where maybe some of the skeptical questions are, have greater merit, in my opinion. You did mention, Mr. Perna, that your goal is to remove as little in the way of existing trees and bushes as possible in as many places as possible. So one thing I would have loved to see in the presentation is exactly what kind of impact it will have, right or wrong, to anyone on that street. How will it sit and how will it be approached, viewed, not viewed at all, because I think that is valid. And as much as I myself, speaking for myself, am a strong supporter of people doing what the McCanns, for example, did with Manfredi Weiss. They built their first and only, to my knowledge, residential, piece of modern architecture in the country here over on Westlake Road. I very much support good visionary modern architecture, but I also recognize that there is a fabric and that one building does impact another. And so it would be very helpful for me, and I certainly gather helpful to your neighbor, just to have a much better sense through whatever kind of visuals you can drum up to establish exactly what that impact is going to be and what the relationships are going to be between the respective buildings, not just hers, but the other neighbors as well. One thing that occurs to me, since we're talking about this, is that in Roberto, in your mock-up and your computer simulation, it seems at odds with what Mr. Perna is suggesting. In other words, I see very few old growth trees and I see plenty of sun, which is of course going to be important to all of those Tesla solar panels, right? And so one needs to figure out where is the south, how is it oriented, and so forth. But and that's my central question: is there a way to do both, to give yourself the amount of regular sun that you need for those solar panels, and to kind of keep that secluded effect that you clearly want? I mean, I think you want a forest house, and the neighbors clearly, right or wrong, if modern architecture isn't their thing, they want to have a sense of kind of a buffer. And so I guess that's the question: how to achieve that?
That's a really good question. I have a house right now in New Jersey that I retrofitted with Tesla, with SunPower, different company, basically the same thing. And I have not as much roof area that this house will provide, the new house will provide, and yet I'm able to run 3 Tesla automobiles, the entire 4,000 square foot home with air conditioning and heating. And my bill every month is $5.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was what convinced me that everybody really should be going in this direction. And certainly when we decided to build a new home, that this is what we were intending to do. So I'm really not that terribly concerned about the trees, the old growth trees that are there, that are very tall, that are going to produce that much shade on the garage roof. Now, once we decide on, and the engineers decide on how much power we're going to actually need, we may need to put a few more panels on the other higher roof on the second floor,
Mhm.
which would probably be fortuitous as far as avoiding any shading of any of the trees. But, you know, as I spoke to John Whitworth when I first proposed the house, he had said, well, try not to have any trees closer than 50 feet to your house, because if they fall down, they could do a tremendous amount of damage. I agree with that, only if a tree is sick and it's got to be taken down. If I can keep trees close enough to my house where they're not going to undermine my foundation, that's going to be the borderline. Those trees are going to stay there, even if they're 20, 25 feet from the house. I'll take the risk of those trees.
Mr. Perna, if it turns out when you are able to kind of give us a slightly more detailed projection of
Mhm.
the relative viewscapes from one building to another, I mean, you know, obviously you can always add, you know, other trees, bushes, whatever, and maybe that's an easy solution to achieve so many of the good things that you're intent on doing, which I think is incredible, while, you know, keeping the neighborhood sort of happy.
Well, one of the things I can't do, I can't put 125 or 150-year-old tree in that property. And it's going to take a long time to replace any of those old growth trees that
Sure.
are so wonderful to have in the
Sure.
village. It's one of the wonderful gifts that we have. That
And
those
what's
trees-
going to make the property so beautiful, because clearly you want that kind of wooded oasis. And he's
Exactly.
not here today, but one of the 5 members of this board, whom you may have met, Christopher Gao, is the head of the Tuxedo Tree Advisory. And he would bless you several
Well,
times over for what you just said, particularly if you're talking about red or white or chestnut oaks.
Exactly. I mean, they're magnificent beings. Let me put it to you like that. I have
Equally.
tremendous respect for
Yeah.
trees that have seen so many generations come, and they're still there. And I'm certainly not going to be the one that's going to bring them to their death.
That's good to hear.
If I have to, because I have to, that's one thing. If I don't have to, I won't. In replacing any of the trees that do have to come down, I will be looking to be adding species that are indigenous species, similar to what's already there. I may want to add a couple of deciduous trees, because we don't have any on the lot, but I know that they do have them in the village, and they do add a little bit of color in the wintertime.
Mhm.
So I may be wanting to do that too. And I'm certainly going to be looking for Mr. Gao's guidance before I
Good.
do it.
He's a valuable resource.
Well, and he's a botanist. He knows the plants that are there.
Mhm.
And once we disturb the ground, a lot of those plants, and I'm talking about below the canopy plants, the grasses and the wildflowers, he will be able to tell me how to replant those, because that's exactly what I want. I don't want a lawn. I don't intend to cut any lawn. I want everything to grow as naturally as it's grown at this moment. So he can help me to attain that. That's my plan. Like him, I'm an environmentalist. I hold a PhD in science education, a master's degree in marine biology. I've been studying systems like this for the last 30, 40 years. I've taught ecology at CCNY and other places, and feel that this is our responsibility to be the stewards of the land.
Bless you.
Thank you.
That's my feeling.
Do we have other comments from the board?
Yes. So there is a precedent for stuff that is approved in here. If we go back as far as the 30s, there really wasn't a BAR as we consider it today. It wasn't really until this was designated a historic district where that came to be more into play. The design is very unique. However, it is wholly inappropriate for in here. I don't see how we could conceivably approve something that looks like this. There are a lot of applicants that have come through that have been required to do certain things that are sympathetic to not just the architecture in the park, but the scenery, the natural architecture of the park. It's admirable what you're trying to do. Excuse me. Your system relies on solar panels, probably in the coldest part of the winter, since the geothermal system won't work below 25 degrees. But we don't have a precedent for approving a solar panel on a roof. So I'm not quite sure how that would be accommodated. It's an unusual design for sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I would point out to you 247 West Lake. Are you acquainted with that home?
Yes.
I see that that is mostly glass. Okay. I see that that is a similar design as far as being a modern building. I would also point out to you 81 Camp Comfort Road that was just constructed. That's approximately 7,000 square feet. That was built into the ridge line, requiring the entire ridge to be blasted out for that building to be built. And that building has direct view for everybody in the village can see it right over the lake. And that is an ultra modern house also with a
There are
tremendous.
ultra modern houses, and there are houses that should never have been approved either.
I think the precedent is set that that house is there, and you have a mid-century modern house 3/10 of a mile from me. That's been there. And I don't see in your regulations, it specifically says that there is no specific architectural design that is required in the village.
That
That
is
is true, but we are also dealing with certain materials that are required as well. You have aluminum in your design. That's not appropriate for in here.
So anybody with an aluminum window or door in the village, isn't that what, not in compliance with the regulations?
We don't approve aluminum windows or doors.
So if they were steel, that would be all right.
We have
There's a set
approved,
of-
I know that.
We have approved steel. That is appropriate. We have never approved aluminum. It is not appropriate for here.
So you're going to tell me that if I paint black paint on steel or black paint on aluminum, that visually any human being could tell the difference?
Doesn't matter whether someone can tell the difference. There's been a precedent in here. People have been required to put in certain things. If we give you an exception, then I would have to wonder if it's actionable for other people that have been before the board against the village at that point.
When you use the term actionable, I think that we should not be talking about what's actionable at this point.
Sheila?
I'm in favor
Brett?
of natural materials, and our code and our guidelines require
All right,
natural
let's-
materials.
I'll tell you what, you all have a lot more experience than I do with approving these types of homes. I'll turn the tables on you. Now you're telling me that I should not use aluminum, but I should use steel. Okay, steel is not a natural material either. Okay, steel does
I
not.
didn't say you should use steel. I just said
No
you
one said
shouldn't
that it
use
has to be
aluminum.
natural either.
You said it should be steel. It could be steel. Steel is approved, but aluminum is not. Okay,
Correct.
It's true.
all right. What material would you suggest for the facade of this building that would be natural material that would, for example, okay, Roberto was discussing Venetian stucco, Venetian plaster. Venetian plaster, when it's finished, looks a great deal like natural marble. Or it
What
can be,
about stone?
excuse me?
What about stone to make it more natural and in keeping with the park, kind of giving a nod to to the architecture of the park while still bringing in a more modern design.
That would be in keeping with the McCann residence that Rob illustrated before, where they used a lot of although it is a modern design, they
Mhm.
use natural materials to blend it into the natural scenery here in the park. So
It
that
seems
is
a bit
that is
stark to me as it is,
I
frankly.
have a question. Is fiber cement allowed? Because where we have aluminum, I mean, fiber cement is another material that could perhaps get us the similar look that we want. Wonder if that's allowed in this village. Fiber cement panels.
John, do you know if we've approved that?
No, we've not approved fiber cement panels.
I didn't think so. Okay.
All right.
In reference to stucco, we've driven around, my wife and I have driven around the entire village. We see a tremendous amount of stucco. We see brick houses. Brick is not natural material. Brick is a man-made material, just like aluminum is a man-made material, and glass is a man-made material. So we see a lot of man-made materials around on a lot of homes. As a matter of fact, the majority of the homes are built with not natural material. So I would like to add some more natural features to the facade, and perhaps the facades of the garage and the main entrance of the house might be enhanced. One of the things that Roberto had discussed was putting in the composite concrete, and I had spoken to him earlier, and I thought maybe we would substitute black marble for that. So is black marble considered acceptable?
Marble, yes. Marble, I don't know in the context of your design, but the material is acceptable.
Okay.
One
So
thing, if I can just interject, Mr. Perno, I thought one of the most beautiful details in the design that Roberto and you devised is that small fill-up of cedar, that small accent of cedar. That to me was one of those moments where the design just sings. And I wonder if there aren't a couple of other opportunities for that, whether, possibly in the garage bay or I don't know where else, but and again, I don't know if that would have an impact. A choice like that would have an impact on some of my fellow board members.
I'd like to interject. I think that we're supportive of new architecture and new ideas, not opposed to contemporary architecture. I think that, in my opinion, it's the use of materials and how they're presented to us as a board and to the community, especially your neighbors. What are the sight lines? What are they going to see? Are they going to see bright white stucco? Are they going to see slabs of concrete type material? How is it going to integrate, as Robin said, into the landscape? And I don't know, if it's a tool that could be helpful in this situation, but whether it's a drone image from the entrance to the property, but there's in face value, it's there's a lot of cold architectural elements, and I think that as a whole, it's important to have all the materials, related as much as possible.
yeah, now I agree with you, Christopher. What I would like to do, if you notice the natural granite that we have in the village, we've got a lot of gray, a lot of light gray. We've got some dark gray. And we're going to try to recreate the same color of any outcroppings that might appear in the village. We're certainly not going to have any stark white. If you're looking at the rendering, that's if there's any stark white there, we're certainly not going to be painting anything white, or anything that's going to be installed is going to be white. We're going to be looking for shades of gray, and starting from charcoal to a light sky gray the most. But for the most part, it'll be granite type colors, similar to what's on the terrain right now, so it blends in. So as far as the idea of adding some more natural material, I do like the idea of adding more wood, more cedar, and or other woods. I think that'll look exquisite in the lot, making it a lot more natural looking. And we will explore adding some additional materials that are more made of natural materials, like natural stone. Those materials can be applied to the building. They could be bought, the materials that they have, like curtain wall type of construction, where you would have materials that look like, that are granite, that are granite colored. You can get different colored marble. Marble comes in all different colors. And we would try to be able to create some of the same colors that we see in the natural environment there. But I would like to pick up a few more natural elements too. And I've discussed this with Roberto before, that we would.
Well, we appreciate you being open to those suggestions.
Absolutely.
And this board has approved modern architecture. We do applaud your efforts from an environmental standpoint, and especially with regard to your status quo landscape design enhanced. All of that, I personally think is that's fine and really good. But I mean, the code does require us to look at the context in which the building is being placed in its neighborhood. And so we'd love to see you come back and give more of a nod to having chosen our Tuxedo Park to be the location for this home, as opposed to Palm Springs.
And honestly, I think half the battle is just really good visual simulations, just the presentation. I think my sense is that it will defang a lot of hard questions. That said, I'm really excited to hear that you are open to some of this kind of evolution in the design in terms of materials. I think that too will, combined with the good imaging and good simulations, my hope is they will allow a really visionary and, as I say, commendable project to sail on through.
And I would also mention, we are willing to consider new materials, solar panels, if they're in the proper design, and other elements that you're looking to add. But again, we have to see the whole picture and how it affects the neighbors and how it's going to look. But we're excited to see what you come up with next. But I am a little more of the historical. It's a little hard for me to get my arms around these moderns, but your environmental vision lures me in a bit.
In reference to the site from the neighbor's property, the house is about 300 feet from the nearest neighbor's window.
Is that right?
And Paola's house, for example, where Paola has her picnic area, if you're sitting there, and we were just there the other day, it's impossible to even see the building.
Wow.
Because there's a stone outcrop right there that prevents her from seeing that. Now, on the other hand, if she is to picnic in the area where she owns the next lot, there's no indication that anybody goes there. So I know that she does own that lot, and she is concerned about where the house is. but we're certainly far enough away from her windows too. I don't believe that she's going to be able to see very much of our house. I mean, if Mr. Gao recommends that we put in some trees that create more of the blind, and he thinks that that's appropriate and the species are the correct species for the community, and they're going to grow and prosper there, and we're going to get some nice tall trees there, that would add to the privacy that we have. That's all well and good for me too.
Mhm.
And in reference to the solar panels, considering where they're going to be put, there's going to be a parapet wall all around that garage and the second floor structure. And so you're not really going to see very much of that, those panels anyway. Originally, we were thinking about a different design where we might have been able to use Tesla tiles, but Tesla tiles don't work on a flat roof. We would have to put those tiles on 15 degree angle supports. So, but as far as seeing very much of them, you're not going to see very much of them. Certainly, you're not going to see them at all from Lookout Stable Road. If you were on the top of Lookout Mountain Road, where no one lives except us, you might then be able to see those panels. But from the other homes that are in that area, you're not going to see those panels, and you're going to barely be able to see the house. You might be able to see the second floor, but the ground floor, you're not going to see any of that, I don't believe. It's the only people that might see it in the future, if those 3 lots behind us ever get developed on Lookout Mountain Road, those houses would be above mine. And I don't even think at that point, if they were to be built, they'd be able to even see my house, because my house would be approximately 75 feet below their windows of their house. So I don't think it's going to impact that much even in the future. It is the last lot in the village, I believe. I don't think there's any lots behind me that can be built upon. I think that's part of a preserve. That's part of that Tuxedo Farm complex, whatever is being planned there. And I think that they've already designated that as a preserve. So I don't think anybody's going to be building anything behind me. And considering the terrain right there also, you've got tremendous drop off. The ridgeline is very, very steep there. So I didn't see anybody building right behind me, even if that does not continue to be a preserve in the future. I hope it is. As far as people wondering, there was a comment about we're losing our beautiful forest. I'm trying my best to make sure that that doesn't happen. People should be able to feel like they're not losing, they're not losers. And I don't want anybody to feel like they're a loser. Someone could have come into this lot and built a tremendous mansion on it and destroyed most of the natural environment, which would have been, according to the code, their right to be able to do that, but wouldn't have been right in my way. This is plenty enough room for us to be able to live, my wife and my son and I intend to live the rest of my life out here. We love the village. We want to be part of the community. And I'm always looking, as I said to the mayor when I spoke to him, anything that I can do, I will do. My expertise are very vast in the field of education. I've gotten almost $90 million in grants for different organizations, schools, and universities during my career. A lot of them having to do with environmentalism, and recently got several EPA grants for a school in Perth Amboy. These are the things that I believe in. This is what I led my whole life for. And so I want to be able to build this home in a community that will appreciate the aesthetics of it. And I certainly want it to fit in as much as it possibly can. And so
We appreciate that. And we look forward to seeing your vision evolve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll
very
look
much.
forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I think our last item on the agenda is the review of the minutes, unless I don't think we had any neighbors or anyone on board, did we tonight that wanted to speak about this application? I don't think so.
There's no neighbors on the meeting now to speak about this application. Elizabeth Cottonwar was on the Zoom meeting earlier, but I emailed her. She has a couple comments, but she'll submit them in writing tomorrow.
Thank you very much for letting us know. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of, what was the last meeting, Desiree?
It was May 5th, 2022.
2022. Is there a second? Somebody
Second.
seconded. Oh, wait, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approved, minutes are approved. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. The
Thank
meeting
you.
is adjourned. Good night.
Good night, Sheila.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.